Hey, thanks so much for finding the video. Do us a favor. If you haven't done so yet, please subscribe. And be sure to leave your comment. We love to interact. Enjoy the video. Saints off their gigantic win on Sunday Night Football over Tampa. And as crazy as it may seem, they're probably about to get better. So, while I wasn't really thinking very much about this during the game, today when I saw the news that Kwon Alexander, his roster exemption had expired, and he is now eligible to return and to join the Saints for their Week 10 game against the 49ers, it really hit me that amazing defensive performance that we saw on Sunday against Tampa, that group, that unit, which limited Tampa to under 200 yards and an NFL record low number of rushing attempts, they're about to get better with Kwon coming back this week. So I started looking kind of deeper dive into Kwon today and how he's been. And last year, he played 8 games before his injury. He had the pectoral injury that cost him half the season. And he returned for the NFC Championship game against Green Bay and then the Super Bowl against the Chiefs. Just for some perspective, Kwon Alexander a year ago in 8 games had 34 tackles. So far this year, now he's healthy, so far this year, Kwon Alexander in just 5 games has already exceeded his tackle total of a year ago. Or I'm sorry, he's approached that in just 5 games. His average has exceeded it. So last year, 8 games, 34 tackles. This year, 5 games, 30 tackles. He's already been a more productive player this year. Now, he had the ankle injury, and they're trying to get him right. Terrio was with us on Friday, disclosed that Kwon had been training at Traction with Ryan Clark, rehabbing the ankle and going through, different drills to get right. So I think you're about to get even better than you were at Tampa. It's worth noting that last week, or Sunday night against Tampa, your snap counts at linebacker, Demario Davis played 49 snaps. Alex Anzalone played 22 snaps. And then you had Granderson, who played 12, and Zach Bond played 2, and Craig Robertson played 1, and that was not including special teams. So those were defensive snaps. So Davis led the way, and Anzalone played fewer than half the snaps that Davis did. Only 22 snaps defensively for Alex Anzalone in that ballgame. The Saints did choose to play more defensive backs against Tom Brady in that offense. And maybe that was a game plan, but I'm going to be very interested to see how Dennis Allen chooses to work Kwon Alexander into this defense. I mean, you have a linebacker now that is better against the run and better against the pass and better at rushing the passer than Anzalone, who at his best, his second year when he was fully healthy, was a really good player. But now you have almost like a Demario Davis clone if Kwon Alexander can remain healthy, and that is sort of the big if. So you kind of look ahead to the schedule, and it is worth wondering, like, how much does the opponent factor into what Dennis Allen chooses to do as far as reps with his linebackers? So you play San Francisco this week, and you know San Francisco is extremely thin. Running back, receiver, tight end, Kittle's out. I mean, this feels like a game where Kwon, against his former team, would play a ton if he's healthy. 2 of your next 3 are against Atlanta. And you know they might spread it out and throw it around with Calvin Ridley and with Julio Jones. And that's probably a game where you would probably see a look that more closely resembled what the Saints did against Tampa this past weekend. But you look up and down, Denver, Philly, the Chiefs, that would make a lot of sense. Minnesota, with the way Dalvin Cook's going right now, you're probably going to play a ton of true two linebacker sets with Kwon and Demario Davis on the field at the same time. And you wrap up at Carolina. You've already had success against them once. With a few rare exceptions, maybe the games against Atlanta and Kansas City, I think you are going to get a ton of play out of Kwon Alexander moving forward, provided he is healthy with that ankle. And by all accounts he is. Otherwise, I don't think the Saints would have made this trade for him. And before the ankle injury, he was having a more productive season than he did a season ago after San Francisco signed him as a free agent, paid him all that money. The Saints this weekend are an early 9.5-point favorite over the 49ers. And I will tell you, with full candor and 100% disclosure, I hate San Francisco. As a kid who grew up in the 80s and the 90s, watching Joe Montana and then Steve Young beat the Saints every stinking year, even when the Saints had their best teams in the Bobby Hebert, Dalton Hilliard, Dome Patrol days, Eric Martin, when the Saints were actually earning playoff berths, and they just could never get over the 49ers. I grew a strong distaste for that team. So whether San Francisco is good or bad, I really don't care. I just want the Saints to pound the 49ers. And they're a heavy favorite in this ball game. It makes sense for very many reasons. When you look at the Niners and their injury report right now, San Francisco's a mash unit. I mean, this is something that's been one of the storylines, going along with this entire NFL season so far, is how far a cry San Francisco is from where they were in that postseason run a year ago. From 13-3, NFC champs, playing in the Super Bowl where you had a 2-score lead in the fourth quarter and blew it, to now at 4-5 with 3 double-digit losses on your resume already this year, including a 43-17 loss to Miami and a 34-17 loss to Green Bay, both in your building. Now you have to come on the road to New Orleans, and you're going to do it without George Kittle and Jimmy Garoppolo and Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson and Ben Garland, their center, Jalen Hurd, Chris Thompson. That's all the offensive players. And defensively, Joey Bosa and Ziggy Ansah, Richard Sherman, who might be coming off of IR this week, Dee Ford, Solomon Thomas, and then one of their special teams aces with Mark Ziocha. This is a decimated football team that's coming to New Orleans in a game that the Saints should be favored by almost double digits as they are as a 9.5-point favorite and should win with ease. I am hopeful that New Orleans doesn't come into this game overlooking San Francisco for many reasons, as we just saw, for example, with Dallas and Pittsburgh this past weekend, where Dallas had Pittsburgh on the ropes for 3.5 quarters. A very bad team was this close to beating the last remaining undefeated team in the NFL. Such is life in the NFL if you get caught napping. Now, the Saints have Kwon available. I am a little leery because San Francisco does have 10 days to prepare. Remember, they played on Thursday night against Green Bay. So they have extra, I know they're traveling cross country, but they have extra time to prepare for this game, and they might be getting a little bit healthier. Still, this is a game where New Orleans has got to keep their head on a swivel and realize that even though you get the feel good, and a lot of people are throwing you bouquets after the way you beat Tampa, you got to take care of business at home, because this is the type of game that could derail you and essentially negate all the feel good from the win this last week in Tampa. And we are going to talk more about what the Saints have coming up, because you're coming up to that stretch where you're going to play back-to-back-to-back road games and then play Kansas City. And before then, you've got 2 out of your next 3 against Atlanta, with a road trip to Denver mixed in where it could be snowing. And those, if you haven't paid attention, Atlanta has won 3 of 4, and their only loss was a game where they had it won, but Todd Gurley accidentally scored. So Atlanta's a team where the feeling is vastly different now than it was a month ago, and that's 2 of your next 3 games. So, look, coming off of the win over Tampa Bay, yes. New Orleans, it feels like the hierarchy in the NFC has shuffled. The deck has been shuffled. Green Bay looks like they're fading. Seattle can't stop anybody, and everyone was getting ready to crown Tampa, and you just handed Tom Brady the worst loss of his career. Now don't screw it up. Great opportunity this weekend to beat a longtime rival in San Fran coming into the Dome as a 9.5-point underdog. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.